Hi, everyone. Welcome to Intuit Talks. We have a very special guest today, Rebecca Campbell, and she should be joining us any minute. There she is. Hello, Rebecca. As you guys are all jumping in to come on, feel free to jump into the comments and let us know where in the world you are chiming in from. Let's let Rebecca in. Hey.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good too. Yeah, I've had a couple of days off, so feeling rested.
Oh, that's nice. I feel like I need a couple days.
Mm. I know. What are things like where you are with lockdown and all that?
Well, I'm in LA. I'm in Venice, and
Hmm.
yeah, I mean everything's like open still, and people are out and about, but there's definitely masks on, and there's still some tensions in the air. And I mean, I've
Mm.
been here, so I don't have a lot to compare it to, but I know when people who don't live in LA come here, they feel it more.
Mm.
Yeah. What
Mm.
about you? Where are you?
Well, I'm in Glastonbury, so like the UK's
Oh.
been pretty full on, but Glastonbury, like we've got beautiful outdoor areas here, so I feel lucky in that respect.
Nice. Yeah, same here. In LA, you can like the sun is shining, you can still go on hikes, be outdoors. So you can still
Mm.
do things and like little things are starting to open up. But I'm in
Mm.
Venice too, so there's a lot of walking and markets and things. So I think in my little
Mm.
bubble, I probably felt a little less of the impact, but it's definitely in
Mm.
the air still.
Totally. I
Yeah.
hear
So thank you for joining us. I know we tried to get this for a couple months, and it's like you're catching us in the end as well. We're slowly winding these down. We've done them all year long, pretty like consistently, weekly.
That's
But go ahead and
amazing.
introduce yourself. I know that, yeah, I feel like our joint communities are probably very excited to have this chat today. If you don't mind just doing a little drop on who you are and
For
what you do.
for sure. So, like you, I'm an oracle creator. I'm a writer. I'm a mom. I'm a healer. I'm a mystic. I think I've always been captivated by the mysteries of life. And I think I'm getting clearer and clearer that, like, everything that I'm creating is about weaving the soul back in, so like seeing the sacred in nature. And yeah, just I think that for many of us, we've been so hungry for that connection. And I look back at my life, even though I've been on a spiritual path for such a long time, I can see even from a young age, just like being hungry
Mhm.
for the sacred without really even being able to find the words for it. So I think that's really been my journey. And I think that's definitely why I create. I don't know, maybe you're similar. For me, particularly with writing, it's kind of, I use it as a way to kind of come back to myself, or sometimes it's like I'm reaching to the heavens, and sometimes the earth, and sometimes my future self, my wise self, to kind of navigate my way through. So I definitely use creativity as, I guess, like a healing tool. How about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, so I feel like the moon deck is definitely, and anything I've created, I'm sure like you being creative and having our wellness and our spirituality and our lifestyle and our careers be so
Mm.
intertwined. Um,
Mm.
Everything I create feels like it has to go through this process of deep digestion and like process, and then eventually like incubation and calibration, and then
Mm.
it crystallizes into something. And the moon deck is definitely one of those things where I took so much of my healing journey as a young girl, even in being
Mm.
a teenage girl into a woman, and all those phases, the voice that she often needed to hear, I feel like
Mm.
found its way into the deck. In addition to, I went through a lot of old journals. That I was a yoga teacher for 16 years, and I've been in that practice for about 25 years. So working with teachers, whether it was in yogic and meditative principles or more intuitive principles and the whole gamut, found its way in there. And then also the notes that I took, not only as a student, but as a teacher, you know, when I would prepare for my classes, and then just processing work, and then of course researching where I was stuck. So it, yeah, it feels like this like integration of all those layers, and I'm really excited to feel, I'm already kind of feeling into something that will come next. And um
Mm.
I'm excited to kind of like, yeah, reach that next layer. But like you said, it's finding the sacred in everything. And some days it's easier to do that than others. What do you do on the days where you're like more in the density and less in the like sacred?
Mm. So one of the things I do is like, reach out to wise friends,
I love it.
particularly elder ones who have kind of like people who've been courageous enough to like fully dive to the depths, but have somehow found the joy of life. I think that's such a big thing. I've got a one particular woman in my life who's like a grandmother type figure, but she's like younger in spirit, but old in soul as well than anyone I know. And so I think when I'm going through particularly like a period where it is like, because I think so often the awakening experience is like, and it can be ecstatic and you know spontaneous and all of that. But I think the awakening process never ends, like
Yeah.
never. And and I think sometimes it can be this bliss experience, and other times it can be the other side of that ecstasy. And so when I'm in that type of process, I definitely reach for people who've been through something like that before, so they can kind of like talk me through it, to be like courageous through it. Because I mean, I think it's easy to kind of shut it down. I don't want to shut it down, but sometimes, yeah, it's not straightforward.
It's definitely not straightforward. And do you feel like, have you cultivated a strong ability to ask for support when you need it? It sounds like you have through that, what you just said.
Oh gosh, it has been such a journey. I'm getting better and better every day. I've done a really great job at being supported. I'm very supported now, and so I'm so much better at receiving that support. Um, Acknowledging it is something I'm working on even more. Definitely room for growth, but yeah, it was definitely something I struggled with. What about you?
I think I like ebb and flow. It kind of
Yeah.
depends on like where I'm at in myself. I think when I'm feeling like a little more constricted inside my system and a little more like insular, it's harder in those moments. And maybe I just need to be in that space. I think it's harder in those moments sometimes to like just like, hey, you know, but there are like those few people that I feel like I can reach out to no matter what, you know.
Mm,
I think it kind of ebbs and flows for me. And still
mm,
learning like the, I think learning the like the subtlety of like when is this mine to like work through, and when do I really need support, and you know, and
yeah,
yeah,
I
I'm
do.
kind of navigating that all the time. But I probably could get, and one like I do believe in like having our counsel, and whether that's
Mm,
therapy or someone who's an intuitive, or I'm in the middle
mm.
of many months I've talked about on here of doing EMDR therapy, and
Oh
like that's
yeah.
thing really good, like amazing for me. So I always have something like that, but it definitely goes through phases. And um yeah, and I think like you said, having elders to turn to, whether that's like in someone in business or someone creatively, is definitely something I would crave more of. But
Mm,
it's there in its own way for sure. And I think sometimes it's like right under our nose too. We're so resourceful.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's that acknowledged piece of like, whoa, look how supported I actually am. Yeah,
Exactly, right.
yeah, yeah. Like I definitely think that there'd been a part of me where like I didn't want to fully acknowledge it, and I can't quite work out why. I need to sit with that a bit.
It's such a big
Yeah.
one of like us asking for, I think maybe too, we're both strong women and we've created these things, and we're channeling and working with our guides. And so there's always, I know I can speak for myself. I feel like it's
Mm,
probably, you're similar, that some of that comes through that connection, right? So,
right.
and sometimes it is so personal. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so true. I think I'm really good at asking like the earth, asking spirit for help, but then when it's like that practical stuff, like I think my husband's very he's very clear. Like when we first started dating, he used to say, "Don't mistake my clarity for anger." And
Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah, and so that's where you. I think often you're attracted to the person who has the medicine, and vice versa. I think most intimate relationships are like that, and I mean not just like like in intimate love relationships. I think those people close that we have that like soul connection with. But yeah, that has always been I think that's the area of growth for me when it comes to receiving support. It's like the little practical things, but
Yeah.
they are actually sometimes the most important things, and actually if you voice them, people like I remember when was oh like when you're going through a really difficult time, whether it's like grief or like loss of a loved one, or and when this happens like to a friend, we've all been in that situation where we just like want to help, but that there is nothing that you can do to actually fix it. I remember when I just lost someone, and I was so sad and away from family, and a friend of mine said, do you need me to come over and make you dinner or tea? And this is like back in like 2010, and I remember when I reflect back, I really wanted her to, but the question was, do you need me to? And I was like, well, no, I can definitely walk to the kettle and I can turn it on, fill it with water. And I didn't need it. But yeah, and so there was something around that, like the need, like actually needing it. Like, no, I don't need it. No, but it would help me. So yeah, I think there's subtle things like that.
It almost makes me think of like when you're speaking, it's like the pragmatic part of you doesn't need it, you can do it, but there was this
Right.
like tender part of you that did need it, right?
Right. And I think that's the thing with, and I know not everyone has great relationships with their mums or fathers or whatever, but if I just use that as a stereotype now, I think when you have family or those people who you are just like so close with, when you do go through a difficult time, the things that are the most helpful are like stripping the bed, putting the dishes in the washing machine. Like when I had my son, he's a year and a half now, that's all. Oh my God, that was like someone giving me all the money in the world, just like literally stripping my bed, putting the washing on. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
so good. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think I think becoming a mum actually has made me so much better at receiving support, because you need it. Like you can't do it all.
Yeah. 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 Has your child influenced your next creative project?
Oh yeah. I think that like the pregnancy and the birth like taught me so much, and yeah, it's all been like diving into the earth and like seeing the sacred in the earth, and that was there already, but um it's as if I'm really struggling to work out what's 2020, 2021, and what's having a baby, because they both happen at the same time. What's lockdown? Oh my God, I'm sure it's all perfectly the same, but what it has taught me, the birth and like being a mom, is how to. Marion Woodman would speak about like the tension of the opposites and holding the tension of the opposites, and which to me is similar to like heaven and earth in a
Mm.
way. And like through the birth, for example, um, oh gosh, like you're there, and it's like my experience of it. I do believe it is possible, anyone listening, to have a birth that's not painful. I believe that's possible. That was not my experience at all. Um, but when I went through the birth, it was like this full on experience of knowing that actually the agony was not the opposite of the ecstasy. It was as if they were forces going towards each other. And, you know, and I think metaphorically, we know about birth with like the creative process, right? And other things in our life where it's like that moment, and this is what the midwives tell you, you're there, and it's the moment where you're like, I can't do this, where the midwife is like, oh, yes, you're almost there. Like, that's the moment. They know that you are doing it because you're right there at that moment. But it's that moment where you're like, oh, and you need to surrender and let that birthing energy, like, oh my God, it just was like that. And yeah, through that birth experience, what I learned was finding a way to open through that. Like when you most want to just like shut it all down, finding a way to like that through it. Oh my God. I
Wow,
feel like
can
I'm
feel it
still
as you
unpacking
speak.
that moment.
I can feel it as you speak. Yeah, it's like it feels very tantric in a way, right? Because tantra is like about not being like, oh, this is good, and not even like the sexual one singular branch of that, which a lot of people focus on, but like the actual tantric practice is like seeing the goddess in the dark stuff and the light stuff,
Right.
and seeing how she morphs and changes, and can we meet her in all of those shades versus just when it's light.
Right. Exactly.
And can we like celebrate that, whether it's her fierceness being exposed or her sweetness being exposed or anything in between, that we get to in our own way like embrace it and see the divine and all of that.
Totally.
So it's less of a dualistic, I guess,
right
approach to it.
Totally. Yeah.
That's what it felt like as you were speaking, and something I've been thinking about a lot. It's like, okay, how do we, because even in the yogic practice, and so many practices have been dualistic of like, let me align myself with the highest of the light. Let me do everything to align myself with that as much as possible, which is a way to do it. And I don't know the answer. And I've certainly been on that path before, versus like, what is just the human experience and how do we embrace all of it, versus like constantly trying to align ourselves with what seems most bright and aligned.
It's so true. And because it's like when we look
Yeah, someone
nature,
said full spectrum divinity. Yeah.
right. Yes, exactly. And I think that's the thing, like being able to hold both at once. Like, how do you hold heaven and right down to the earth at the same time? And I think that's definitely, yeah, just that question alone has been like my syllabus the past couple of years. But yeah, and I think, you know, we look to nature and the seasons, and, you know, they're changing constantly. And like, we all know that we are nature. We're not separated from it, but it's our belief that we are separate from it. Like, if you look up the dictionary, nature does not include us at all. It's like rocks and plants. And that's not true. And I think, yeah, in our patriarchal world, it's like there is this pressure, particularly on women, all people, but particularly women, to grow, be in full bloom and produce rather than create and all of that. And we know that we're actually not aligned to the feminine when we do it. And it's particularly if we're creators, it's a challenge to stay in creation rather than slip into producing when we love what we do, especially, you know. And I think the same is the case for, I don't know if you'd call it the awakening experience or just life, because I think life is the whole awakening experience. Like, we naturally like resist the autumn and the winter, you know. And, you know, I've got this great man in my life who I had spoken to. He's like a health, like he's a holistic doctor. And I remember saying to him when it was after I had my son and I'd been going through something, and I spoke to him. I'm like, I feel like I'm losing it a bit. Like, and he was like, well done. You are growing. You are like a flower, you're in your fall. Like you're going into winter. And if you don't do that, spring won't come again. Like the second bloom. Some flower, I've got these beautiful roses in my garden. Some of them have a second bloom. Like you don't expect them to, but it's only when you cut them back that they do. And I think that it takes huge courage to properly let ourselves have the autumn and the winter. But then it helps us to create as well. And of course, I'm not just talking creative process here. It's like life in general. But I think that's why like honest conversations are so important. Yeah.
Totally. It just reminds us that we're not alone in those thoughts or
Mm.
and to have other creators in our life who also run businesses. Because what you were saying, I'm like, oh, I so feel that right now of like creating
Oh,
space for the creator part to come forward, which is a certain, and we just sort of have to find it, right? It's part of our job. But like to like, yeah, I'm like really in the thick of like running a business right now and wanting to find that space. And like time wise, I can find the time, but it's something deeper than just
it
having the
so
time.
is. It so is. Like I just had a couple of days. It wasn't quite a holiday. It was it's what I went to the place where I run my retreats, and there's a woman there who she basically like takes care of the land, plants the vegetables, the fruits. Like she's got the relationship with the land, and so I've been working with her and that land for the past couple of years, and so I went there, and we were like, what we needed to do was plan the retreat out. And every time we're together, I sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, oh, I should be doing more, or I should have like come away with like the outline or whatever. But when we like dive into it, we just went into the forest, and she showed me like the resin because we want to work with sacred smoke, and she showed me this particular area, and then we both sat together and we both shared a vision that we had, which was identical, and created a whole new practice. And that was creation.
Yeah.
But I could have effectively spent a whole day trying to brainstorm practices, and it wouldn't have been as sweet and pure. And so I think it's like it's such a challenge to, it is in a way like leaping into the void of the spaciousness to trust that it will come. And I think the creative does that, but then we also need the deadline for it to come. And it's just this, oh, I mean, I'm fascinated by the creative process, and I'm always tested by it. Like, it's this, like, I guess it's the same. It's the contraction and the expansion. And every time
Exactly.
you expand, it comes, and oh.
I know, and it's just remembering it when we're in the contraction of like that's not forever, that it's part of the journey, it's part of the process of transforming and digesting and becoming. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So how long, this is probably, I'm sure there's many variables to this question, but like how long would you say a creative seed is planted? Like how long does it germinate in you? Is it like a few years, a few months? What does it tend to be with like your biggest things?
Mm. I'd say it's probably like 8 to 10 years when I actually look back now. Oh gosh, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say so. Like my first book was, I mean, that was much longer. That was probably 15, 20 years, I'd say. That thing. I think your first creation's always been there for a long time.
What's your first book called?
It's called Light is the New Black.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
your
about
first
soul
book.
callings. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
that's
my
the one that just
first.
came out. That's recent though, but you're saying the idea was from many years ago.
Oh no, that's Letters to a Starseed. This is my new one. This
Oh,
actually,
beautiful.
yeah, this
Ooh.
one, Letters to a Starseed it
Oh
is. So
my
it's,
gosh, it's gorgeous.
isn't it pretty? Well, it's interesting because I had the vision for this cover so many years ago, and I'd written my second book, Rise Sister Rise, and then it came in, and yeah, it was kind of a lot of the material in that book was like a real foundational stuff in me discovering the soul and the journey of the soul and all of that, which I'd always been fascinated with.
So light is
Um,
the new, how old is light is the new black? About a decade, you said?
Oh, it's 2013 it came out, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, this one, I knew the title. I roughly knew what it was about. I shared it with my publisher, but like, and they liked it. Well, they were kind of like, "What the hell is a starseed or whatever?" We've about heard not that many people. I mean, people in our circles were talking about it, but yeah, it just didn't quite. Something for some reason, I saw it very clearly. I saw the three together, but it never really happened, and I was fine by that. Um, and yeah, and then so but then that's where I began creating oracle cards, which was amazing because with the oracles, I was able to be able to work with an artist to visualize the visions I had, which to me was like similar to that book. And yeah, and then I was pregnant and had my son, and so for about 3 years I've been working on this book, which I have, the working title is Returning, and it's about returning to the earth and each other and ourselves, etc. But it's a wild one, and there's lots of words there, but it's not quite formed even still. And then I got asked to write that one after, it was like 5 years later. And at first I resisted because I was so in a different place. And then every time I tuned in and meditated on it, it was a clear yes. And then the essence of the book came in, which was like, it was similar to what I first pitched, but there was a thread that wasn't in there before, which is essentially about like planting ourselves here. So not kind of like looking up to the stars, but like seeding what we came here to seed, and realizing that we've got forests and rose gardens within us. And so to really activating that. And so that was like a different message that wouldn't have been in there if I had have written it then. So, and that book, so it had been with me for a long, long time. But I wrote it very quick, which I don't normally. My process is way more wild and feminine than that. But this one came very clearly, very quick.
That
And
must have
so,
felt great. That
oh,
sounds, I love that.
I know. Maybe it was just because I was having sleepless nights with my son and I just like had to do it. But yeah, but then on the polar side, this other one I've been writing for years is just like, whoa, drawn out. So I think it depends on the energies we're working with. But I love with oracles, I find I love that type of creation because it's holding the big vision, but being able to like download in like each card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you know what I mean.
I do, and I think I haven't written like, I mean, I have, I wrote the Moon Deck book, obviously, but I haven't
Yeah.
written like a cover to cover type of read, and I would imagine that's a very different process than writing like even a daily affirmation book or a set of oracle cards where you get to encapsulate these ideas and sort of spirits in these, different expressions.
Mm.
I know when I wrote the Moon Deck, some of the cards that I would be working on like came really alive to test me in my life.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, oh, like, I'm like on
There
this
you
card,
are.
this theme, and they would just like come up. Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
do you
so
have one
true.
or two? Do you have two decks or one?
I've got two
You
decks.
got two decks. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Because you have
so
the Starseed one, right?
Starseed and Work Your Light. And then
Work your
I'm just working on, I don't know if you can see here, I'm working on a new one, which is
Ooh,
called the Rose Oracle. So
the
yeah.
Rose Oracle. Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's about
Are you
the
working with the
connection
same
with,
artist?
no, I've got a different artist for this one. So yeah, she's based in the UK here. So we've been diving deep on flowers and the mystical traditions of the rose and symbology. Yeah, it's interesting. Like a few years ago, I mean, the rose came to me when I was living in London. It was yeah. I mean, I write a lot about the rose. I speak a lot about the rose, but it really was like the first gateway into the work, like writing from the soul. I wrote my first book in Regent's Park Rose Garden here in London. Oh, well, I
Hmm.
live in Glastonbury now, but in London. And yeah, I've started planting my own roses here. But a few years ago, I remember saying to a friend, I'm just like, oh, I had all these workshops to do, and I just said, I can't talk about anything except for flowers anymore. And she's like, great. So I just embraced that.
I love flowers so much. They're like a really special medicine for me. Just being around them, cutting them, putting them in little
uh,
vases around my space. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
It's like such a
Yeah.
nice way to get creative, like with the earth and to touch the earth and connect to the
Mm.
colors. It's always
It's,
uplifts me.
oh, me too. Me too. Yeah, I think they've got such incredible medicine, and yeah, to me they feel like the bridge between Earth and the cosmos too, like or the soul. Like they're such a gateway. I think beauty is that as well. But
I
yeah,
love that.
especially here in the UK, it's such a seasonal place. Compared to where I grew up in Australia, it's more warm and temperate. But yeah, having like going through the winter and then as the wheel turns, like the buds bursting through, and yeah, the UK's really taught me a lot about, or the flowers in the UK have really taught me a lot about, yeah, I guess just like noticing the inner seasons and all of that.
Yeah, I lived in New York for 18 years.
Oh, right.
We very
Did
much like
you? Like
I
when you were
did. I just
younger, or?
no, I grew up in LA and I just came
Mhm.
back to LA 4 years ago and I from New
Oh,
York.
wow.
So
Oh,
most of like
awesome.
yeah, my a lot of my adult life was there. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
It was great. I mean, I was ready to leave when I left, but it definitely is an awesome, awesome city. I miss things about it, but
mm.
don't miss the super long winters.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what
Do
you
you have
mean.
your deck nearby you?
Yeah.
Should we each shuffle and pick a card for
Yeah, let's
everyone?
do it. Beautiful. I'd love that.
I always try to pick one card during our chats. So yeah,
That's such
everyone
a
set
great
an
idea.
intention. I love that that one just totally flipped out, but I'm gonna keep shuffling. There's a few. When you have jumpers, do you usually use the jumper cards as like
Yeah. Well,
part of the
I often do a jumper and then I'll pick another one.
yeah, yeah. I'm actually I just last Sunday I lead these 8-week online trainings teaching people how to be fluent readers of the moon deck. But we go
Oh,
like deep
great.
into the teachings of the cards. Um, all right. Ooh. So we got and the moon deck the wolf card.
Mm.
I unleash my
Mm.
wildness and choose to be free.
Wow. Well, these are very aligned. I two jumped out. Sorry.
I'm gonna do two
First
as
this.
well. Yeah.
First this one, which is transformation. So it's all about like energetic upgrades, big inner outer changes. Things are changing at a cellular level, deep healing. So kind of like the stuff that we were talking about before around like when you're going through something that feels unknown to you, trusting that there's intelligence at play. And then this one feels so aligned to your wolf card. It's unbound. And so really what you can see here is like the women there, they've got the rope. So it's kind of like connected to the wild woman, the healers, the witches,
Ooh.
the powerful woman. So releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. And so it's
Wow.
really opening ourselves up to shedding, transforming, and trusting that the unbinding process is happening.
I love that duo. That's so spot
Mm,
on for me right now.
and
Yeah,
do you,
here we got I unleash my wildness and choose to be free. And that can of course whether you think of the word wildness or free, that's I feel like sometimes we hear those words and we just think of like like a collie
mm,
going crazy, but it doesn't
mm,
have to be. It can be your own definition of what it would mean to unleash like we I feel like we all have this very primal spark within us that's longing to be expressed in whatever way. And so this is kind of a calling to that part of us that is longing to be free and however
mm,
that looks for you and to tap into that primal wisdom and wildness within us. And that could look like getting away from it all and going into nature. It might be how you express yourself in your art. And wolves in general tend to be very loyal to their packs, but they still need to, or to their mate, but they still need to kind of go out and venture and discover for themselves and then bring back what they discover to their community. And then this one is the worth card. I free myself from critical thoughts towards my body and my worth. So it's not like, I always say, it's not like getting rid of that inner critic, because it's a powerful voice. It's just like, you know, changing its position, like firing it from the job it was doing and like changing its position so that like that bold, protective inner critic, we don't need to kick it to the curb or be in a fight with it, but we can just say, hey, this doesn't suit me anymore, especially if it's around our worth or our body, and just like shaping that dialogue and that language and that voice so that it's in a more productive and loving position in our life. And I guess that's where like the deeper shadow work would come in handy, and the deeper inner child work is to reclaim those parts of ourselves that maybe stopped trusting ourselves once upon a time, or felt the need to protect ourselves in whatever weird way that we did, and then coming to a place now where we want to move forward and change the patterns and bring more resonance into our life, and be less attached to the dissonance or the drama or whatever, you know, the looping, the patterns, and being honest about the patterns that show up for us, and knowing that, and this has the word free actually as well, so it's just like and not all the cards do. So these are both about like freedom, like arms up. I free myself from critical thoughts towards my body and my worth. And for some of you, it might be really about your body. If you're not feeling at home in your body right now, what can you do to sweeten that relationship? And it could just be more about the subconscious kind of self-worth stuff that I think if we ignore it, it kind of starts to ripple into so many aspects of our lives, right? Because it taints the lens in which we see opportunity or new people coming in if we're not doing something to nurture that subtler self-worth relationship we have with ourselves.
Yeah, that resonates.
Yeah, so we could go on and on, I'm sure. Yeah. So do you have are you self-published or do you work with a publisher?
I work with a publisher. So I've been all of my books and oracles so far have been with Hay House. I didn't get an agent or anything. I entered the writers workshop and I won that. So yeah, it just kind of happened from there. So yeah, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you self-publish?
We are totally self-published right now. Yeah, we started off, we've been in business for about 5 years, and it took 2 years to make the deck. Many years of it sitting in me, turning into something.
Yeah.
When I knew I wanted to do a deck many, many years, like a decade plus ago at this point. And, but I didn't know it would be the moon deck. I didn't know it would be so feminine or ritual based. That kind of came a bit later, closer to when I actually started doing it. And then the next one that I'm sitting with is like kind of a whole different vibe. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some threads that overlap, but definitely a different vibe. And yeah, and we actually launched as a crowdfunding campaign. So we did a pre-order campaign in 2016, and we raised $50,000 just from pre-orders.
Wow.
I know, it was kind of
That's
amazing.
incredible.
That's what launched our business. So we haven't had any other outside investment besides that. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, in running a business, I'm always considering other ways to do things, but that's what we're doing right now, and just slowly adding on some other products. And I do the trainings, and I feel like it's kind of in this, we're in a bit of a evolving chapter right now. So
yeah, right. Oh, that's so exciting. And can you reveal the theme for the next deck, or is it super secret? You don't have to
say it's like, yeah, it's kind of secret, but we can we can hop on a call and geek out anytime.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that.
Yeah, I don't want to drop it yet. It's definitely gonna be about like activating nature in us and the elements and things like that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. If anyone here has questions, you guys should take advantage. here. So you have two decks and two books. Is that right?
3 books now. Yeah,
Oh, three
three.
books now. Yeah, if anyone
Yeah.
has any questions for Rebecca, if you're new to her or you have her stuff, she's an intuitive, an artist, a mama, a business owner, a writer. I mean, you're many things. And we've never actually met face to face
No,
before.
I know.
I've seen your work for a while out there for sure.
Mm.
What's your journey been with your intuition and cultivating like really deep trust with it?
Um, I'd say like when I was younger, I'd always been someone who had like huge feelings and didn't know how to process them. You too?
Totally. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was told very often, stop being so sensitive, Arana. You can't feel your way through everything. And so
So then you created a moon deck.
it was confusing. I was like, what do I do? But they're so big, these feelings. I mean, they're almost made to feel bigger when they're not allowed.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. If you're not able to give them flow and motion, it's like they kind of grow into something bigger than they are, and then the other feelings kind of snowball into them. So I think that was definitely an area that led me into soul work, maybe even more deeply. And then I began studying intuition actively in my 20s and learning about like clairsentience, which is clear feeling, any feelers out there, and then how my intuitive senses worked with each other was life changing. And so, yeah, then all through my 20s, I actively studied the soul, journey of the soul, intuition, and all of that, but never necessarily as a career. It was just always my passion. And before I knew it, I was like more qualified in my passion than I was at my career.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Did you work with teachers or just do your own self-study?
Yeah, I worked with teachers, and self-study too, like lots of like really like old type classic books,
Mm.
you
Oh,
know, of the
cool.
mystics and teachers in that respect. But I did work with like in a structured way with a couple of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sonia Choquette was one of my teachers in my 20s. She was a brilliant teacher on intuition and like the importance of like acting on it, so it's not just this kind of like airy fairy thing. So
Yeah.
of it being like an actual like set, like it's a sense, and it should be the first sense. That's what she taught me.
Yeah, I know because if we don't act on it, it just can become thoughts and like so quickly our mind jumps in. And I find that
Oh
the more
yeah.
we act on it, even in the little things, the more it kind of pops and accelerates and shows up in a much clearer and like easy way. And I always say like I think intuition's an interesting thing because when we talk about it from the outside, it's like, oh, I have an intuitive lifestyle. And for me, I've also been intuitive since I was little, and I was exploring spirituality from a very, very young age. Partly because it was how I felt safe in like uncertain circumstances. And then I think like this like deep craving to like crack the code of intuition, which of course we're both, I'm sure, still learning about, came from struggling with so much self-doubt because of that younger voice that was sort of shut down in different ways. And so it would get to a point where it's almost like a debilitating self-doubt on a deep level that caused
Mm-hmm.
me a lot of suffering, actually, like just like such uneasiness in my body. And so I was just like, I want to crack this code because I really feel that intuition is such a powerful sense. That's all of our birthrights, and some of us might have it more than others or more access. Anyone that's here listening to us is probably an empath or a sensitive or an intuitive and a deep feeler, and the world does need deep feelers more than anything, even though we have had to kind of navigate our way in a world that desperately needs to feel. And here we are with like our really big feelings. So I think with intuition, it's a journey, and it's not always warm and fuzzy what it tells us. It might
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
tell us to like make some pretty bold moves in life, and that's hard to listen to sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, I think so often like we know it's our intuition when it doesn't make sense. Eventually it makes sense.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
why it's like it takes courage. Like it's not and I think this is the thing, because it seems like when you just kind of dabble into the surface of learning about intuition, it's like, oh, it's like just like new age warm and fuzzy type stuff, but actually I think it's the opposite of that. And like properly living it requires deep integration, and that's challenging because it requires that we face things that we're scared of or that don't make sense yet, that we trust ourselves, that we follow through, and then we act on these inner knowings. And so yeah, I think that when we are committed to living an intuitive life, which is, I call it a soul-led life,
Mm.
it is magical in a way of like things, particularly if you like, I'm hearing you with your deck. It's like it had been with you, the seed had been with you for so long, and then when you were like, all right, I'm doing it, boom, the path opens up. And so it was like all of that work had been kind of like stored up, and it opens. And that does happen. Like it does happen where it's like following the yellow brick road in a way. And there's times where it doesn't feel like that, because in order to follow the road, we need to look at the hole in the pavement that everyone else is kind of like turning away from, or we've been turning away from, in order to jump over it. So
Totally. Right. And then doing that work of clearing the static or the dissonance or the debris that's innate in our personal patterns that maybe don't work for us anymore. Yeah, it's like this constant, like someone once asked recently in this class that I was in, like to someone who's had a lot of success, do you still have fear? And she was like, of course I still have fear, because you know, as you grow and evolve, you might be able to stomach more, but like as you expand, your capacity expands, and then the next sort of triumph is revealed, and so that's going to bring up fear, because the next thing that's showing up that you want to do, or a big change in your life, the higher level of fear is going to show up based on that stretched
so
out
true.
capacity. So the fear just keeps showing up for her, but she has more tools, she can stomach more of it because she's been on this journey now. And as she elevates, like, you know, more, a fear that maybe she couldn't handle 10 years ago is now showing up because she has the strength and the capacity to handle like the next layer.
It's
Yeah.
so true. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm trying to work out how to say this, but you know, often when it comes to, I mean, you've clearly been doing EMDR and like dealing with trauma. Often it comes up when we're finally safe enough for it to come up. Often it doesn't come up while we're actually in it. And so it's this, before the like, in order to expand, we fully contract, and then and it's like
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. Yes. There are some questions here. I don't know if you want to
let's do
scroll
it.
through. I want to be respectful of your time. It's been so, I can't believe the time like zoomed by. It's so fun
I
talking
know.
to a fellow Oracle writer and intuitive.
Are the books cards available in Austria? What are the names? I don't know if it's books. I'll tell you mine. So I've got Letters to a Starseed. That's this one.
Gorgeous, rainbowy,
Um,
silvery yumminess.
Rise, Sister, Rise. And then Light is a New Black. And this is the Work Your Light Oracle. But I don't have the Starseed with me right now. The other one's a Starseed. And they should all be available in Austria. Like they're on Amazon and places like that. But of course, like go to your local, go local if you can. But yeah, if not, it'll be on my website, which you'll be able to find from my profile.
What's
What are
the
you going?
what inspired the Rise Sister Rise book? That might be a longer conversation.
Oh, it
Is
is.
that
But if I was to paraphrase, yeah, like I had begun doing the work of the rising feminine, right, and realizing how much patriarchy existed within me. It actually came, I live in Glastonbury now, and Glastonbury is this beautiful sacred town where it's literally the town of goddess. Like, and everyone here, most people here, are in worship of the goddess and the wheel of the year and all of that. And so I came here just on a personal retreat. They say it's a heart chakra of the world, very healing place, but it brings up lots of like mother type healing stuff, goddess
I
type.
didn't know that about Glastonbury. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, it was when I first visited here, I connected with the energy I call the Magdalens. And yeah, it hurdled me. I wrote that book as I was going through it. So my other books I wrote with more distance between it, but I was definitely moving through, you know, learning about the wise woman, the wild woman, the devastation that happened here in Europe in particular, and obviously then it echoed out all across the world, where, you know, the wise women, witches, healers were severed and silenced, and not just women. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing very, very clearly now the effects of colonialism and all of that. And yeah, so it was going through all of that, and realizing how, you know, I'd learned how to make it in a man's world, and not even knowing that that's what I was doing through that, like the overworking and being passionate and creating versus producing and being a good girl and all of that, which you know, you're a moon oracle. I know that it touches on all of that, but yeah, that's what that one's about. And also my mum was really sick at the time. She had breast cancer, and there was definitely some stuff that was coming up around that with the mother line and resting, and that wasn't a short answer.
I love it though. It makes so much sense. It's so beautiful that you were able to channel that in the most potent time where it's being sort of unearthed and revealed. Yeah, someone here is asking, what are your go-to tools?
So I used to be very rhythmic and disciplined in what my practice was. So there was a period where I would do a particular type of meditation every day, roughly the same time, for the same amount of time. But then as I've moved through my journey, it's like tides with the different practices that serve. So up until just recently, the practice that I've been doing, which has been just the most nourishing, is I call it, it's my name for it, earth pulsing, which really it's just being cradled by the earth. So laying back on the earth, and you know, when you're laying down, you can kind of feel your own heartbeat against the surface, and then connecting with right in the center of the earth, the heartbeat of the mother, which is really another name for the pulse of life, the thing that causes the planet to spin, the tides to come and go, the moon to wax and wane, all of that. And so just surrendering to that, being held by that, that's been a really incredible tool, particularly if you're going through what I would call an inner winter. So it's like you're being called to kind of rest, retreat, and be held, rejuvenate. Other practices that have been instrumental at different times have been chanting. Chanting has been, I did my kirtan training 2014, I think it was, or 2015. And yeah, prior to that, when I first began chanting, oh, I just cried for, it felt like about a week or so, just in that beautiful homecoming. So I think when we can, if we ever like fearful of sharing our voice, or we've got voice stuff come up, often devotional chanting can be really great medicine as well.
I love that. Beautiful. I think I'm craving that as you're speaking. I'm like feeling in my body. I'm just like, oh yes, that's what I need.
Me too.
Well, if anyone has, if there's anything you want to share, Rebecca, about how to get in touch with you, and you just shared, I mean, so you sell your books and decks on your website, on Amazon,
Yes,
and we'll be putting this up, by
exactly.
the way, on our page where it will live forever. So you can always go in there and drop whatever you want in the
Oh,
comments.
bless you. Thanks so much. Yeah, just follow my profile, or if it's somewhere else, just go to rebeccacampbell.me and you'll be able to find all the things. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been really, really nice connecting with you for the first time and being with you all.
Yes, and just I'm excited to see all your next project. Sounds like it feels like you have a really good rhythm of what wants to move through you into the creative, eventually into the production of, and it sounds like this. It feels there feels like there's like a smoothness in it. So congratulations on all of that. I know
Thank
it's
you
not
so
always
much.
smooth, but but like the
No,
deeper, subtler energy is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm excited about your new project when it
Oh,
is revealed.
thank you. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever come to the States much, probably not for a while with everything,
No,
but
well, we had actually planned to, but yeah, we were planning on spending extended time there, and then 2020, 2021 happened. So I'm sure it will happen. So hopefully we'll get to meet in person.
yes, yes. And I'm always down to have a little think tank if you ever want to
For
geek out
sure,
on
me
the
too.
Oracle business teaching side of things. Do you teach also? You do, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Yeah, great. Well,
Awesome.
thank you
Oh,
so
thank you
much,
so much.
Rebecca. Thank you, everyone who's here. We'll be posting this on our page so you can dive in and watch more if you want to rewind, fast forward. And yeah, much love to Rebecca. Thank you for being here with us and gracing
Thank
our
you so
page with your
much.
insights.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.